Completely agree, and I would rather they fix the lag than take away the stuns. I don't love the stuns, but like, I can live with the stuns. It's the stun from 30 feet away that really kills me.
Yeah, there are some things that should be not look like balanced, but the games need to be fixed. Like it needs to work well, and then we will see what is not going well. But with the lag, it's not. Sometimes some things are not real. When you're flying with the glider, when you're when you're joining the harbor with the ship, there are some annoying lags, and a lot of people lose ships because of the lag and something like that. Hitting
Yep.
their own harbor because of the structure, the game crash, and but the PvP in the ground, yeah, I think as you is balanced, and the PvP, the player versus player, yes, no, it's not bad compared on season 2 that was only torpor.
Ugh,
Yeah,
awful.
only.
I kind of miss that, to be honest.
Ugh.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I never got
No.
to experience that on season 2, so I'm not sure how that goes.
Oh, it was just it invalidated all of your gear blueprints. It ended fights so fast. I really disliked it. I like the current. I would like to see a slightly longer time to kill right now, because it's pretty straightforward to kill somebody, even if they're wasted drunk and they have pudding and decent armor on. It's still just a few sword slashes. But like I don't hate the time to kill right now. It could be a little longer. The last season, the time to kill was just Pike dead, down, naked, executed. Not fun.
I think the critical strike roundhouse kick sword action right now is pretty similar to that though. Like once you bowler someone, you can pretty much one shot them, and that's what happened last season. You bowlered someone, and I mean it was like 5 hits, but you would knock them out in 5 hits, basically guaranteed.
So I
So
totally
I think
agree
it's
with
pretty
the
similar
bounce strike,
still.
but if you use control and then left click or right click, if you do the block, you block a circular strike if you block either direction. And then if you downswing, you will annihilate them because you get a 45% damage bonus when you parry and then follow up. So it's actually really easy to counter someone who just bolas you and then comes in for a circular strike. You just wait for him and block.
Yeah, well, you can block and dodge Pike as well in the bowler.
Yeah, you can dodge.
You can even dodge. Like you just go combat stance and then you just spam S, and you will dodge every single hit in a bowler. So,
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, you can dodge, but you can get the kill if they foolishly come in for the circular strike. But I think the point that we're both making is that there's at least some skillful counterplay to that.
yeah,
ground
there's
interesting.
counterplay. There's no counterplay in lag, in my opinion.
Totally
Like
agree.
as
I
soon as
don't-
the server sometimes, like as soon as there's some packet loss or some actions don't register, like even being able to go into combat mode, if that doesn't work, you cannot dodge. And sometimes
Totally
it
agree.
lags that you cannot enter combat mode, you cannot dodge, so you cannot counter it. I think that's the only part where ground PvP is extremely unbalanced. Like as soon as the ping is somewhere near 200, it turns into just using circular slash or
But
just using grenades.
not only the ground PvP, even the claim system or whatever, when the pings go up, the claim time doesn't change. It's always the same because you can check on the bed when you have 200 ping or 255. The cooldown is going 2 seconds down or 3, but 2 seconds up again, and then you have to wait instead 1 minute, 2 or 3 because of the lag.
Yep.
But the claim system doesn't stop. It's another has another like another clock. It's going.
Yeah, there's a server time clock which affects the combat timer and the flag, but that's totally desynced from your cooldowns, from your reloads, from your bed respawns. It's very
Mhm. And we are talking about ground because on the ships is so funny when you reach 255 ping server. The ship takes 35 minutes to reach the whole server.
yeah, the jitter is awful, the rubber banding is awful.
Hmm.
I think as we have this conversation today, I think we all agree that the lag is the biggest single issue facing the game. I just don't want to beat the lag to death at every corner because everything we talk about, the lag is the through line.
Hmm.
It really it makes everything really. I just don't want to beat it to death. I think we all agree.
Yeah, I think they just need to either add more optimization or add more stuff that reduce the lag, like the amount of structure. So like my base on K4, like I can, like I get like 10 FPS, 5 FPS sometimes, and that's because the amount of structures and puckles and like boats is like it's just insane.
I think that's true to an extent, but even last season, I had max structure capped bases that still performed better than what I'm seeing this. I really think that with the introduction of the Xbox, probably some significant memory leaks or something introduced for the purposes of compatibility really reduced server performance, and I feel like we're really struggling with that still. I feel like the devs are still struggling with that anyway. Because it's back to, at some points I feel like I'm in season 1 again. I felt like for some parts of season 2 I had some really like well performing servers even under high load, and I feel like that's no longer the case.
Yeah, I somewhat agree with that.
But I have to say that some servers, I don't know why they work different, because I fight in some server with more people, more structures, and less lag, less ping. So
I think I know why that is. I
I
think it's
don't know
because
if it's the people because of different regions, or I don't know. But
no, it's because like the physical servers are always made up out of 3 grids in a line.
Mm-hmm.
So A1, A2, A3 is always one physical server.
Correct.
So when you have a situation where there's a free port, lawless, and then a server with few islands, then you have very little structure spam and very little players on those 3 grids. And then maybe your one grid or your one island that's not spammed super much can easily handle 100 players. While when you look at 3 grids that are not lawless, like regular islands, and there's 7 islands in the grid, and there's a lot of activity on the other grids as well, then every single one of those grids is going to be fucked.
Yeah, and I think that a big mistake that they made in season 2 midway was in some server grids they added 3 or 4 significant islands, and you have grids now with 8 or 10 islands. If you have a 3-row grid, like you say, assigned to one cluster to one server, and those things all have player islands that are claimable, and some of those islands are massive, and there are 8 or 10 islands per tile, like it's a recipe for disaster.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Let me jump really quickly into the other topics. We're going to touch on the politics stuff. So, Pca disbanded recently. I'm not sure. And entry got wiped. I'm not sure if we want to jump into the before because the entry part, like because that happened between No and Death Taxes, right? So you want to talk to me a little about that, Aurelius? Like how'd that go? How'd that went?
Death and Taxes had a great time over the past few weeks prosecuting and executing a full-scale war against it. We had a great time. I think, some of them had a good time. I think it was a big struggle. When you have a fight that big, it stresses internal politics a lot, so I think they had to deal with that. And their Diplo was not on point. But at the end of the day, yeah, Death and Taxes today, we raised both of their islands just a couple days ago after a hard-fought campaign. And I think that SDC probably also has a view if Ellen can hop in, but I think that may be the biggest group to have been wiped this season so far in a PvP.
Yeah, and on our side, we had Pca with SOB and a couple of companies whose name I forgot. And as far the rundown on that is that we just ended up like disbanding Pca because it wasn't working out with SOB and the other companies, so we just ended up doing our own thing. And we lost the island of J3, but we didn't get completely wiped on like entry, unfortunately. So I mean, we're still around. So maybe Tim can touch on that a little bit more, since because those dragons, they were like pretty good. So there's that on that. Like, do you guys find any big groups over there in EU, or is it just like you guys seeing like the biggest group? Like, who are the biggest groups over there in EU?
Well, I think there are a couple of big groups. We are one, and then there are a couple of big tribes like Crimson Covenant,
Are they mostly
Ministerio.
PC companies, or
I will
like are there any
say, yeah,
big Xbox
Nightclub
companies?
are our enemies, but that's the tribes that I know. There will be maybe some tribes that I don't know with a lot of members active, and yeah, and a lot of members with huge bases, with some island in grids. Yeah, there are a couple of big tribes.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else is going to be happening this weekend with other large companies. I'm assuming usually on the weekend we have like usually larger scale battles, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, jumping on to next thing. So what do you guys think about? Because this is a problem it's been annoying me. Like, what do you guys think about static defenses in Atlas? Like, do they need to be changed? Do they need to be buffed? Like, what do you guys think overall of static defenses, like buckles and swivels and stuff like that?
Want to sound like a broken record here? To me, they are at the exact right level of balance, but only outside of lag, because in lag, they become completely worthless. If the lag were fixed, I would be pretty happy with static defenses. On land, I think swivels on boats are too strong because they multiplicatively stack with the damage stat on the boat. But I think on land, it's pretty good.
But the thing with the swivel, even if they are weak, the problem with the NPC, if the aimbot, the wall hack, and they shoot you sometimes through the wall, through the deck.
Totally agree. That's a huge problem.
So even if they hit for 50 HP, they can still hit through walls or through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can do tame carts through walls again right now, and shoot your swivel through walls into buildings, and you can have boats that shoot from underneath your deck into underneath an enemy boat's deck right now on swivels. Those are things that I talked to Jad, I talked to Dolly, I talked to Voodoo, and I begged them to focus on that because I think that's a huge problem on the water right now.
Yeah, I that explains why someone on our Taiwanese put a puckle inside my metal deck. I was like, "What is this for?" It's like, don't buy Dolphin.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Under deck swivels are critical right now.
Yeah. I'm personally not a big fan of like puckles just doing like the way I see it is like more on the smaller side of like the groups where like they don't really a lot of the small groups can't really afford like legendary puckles or like journeyman puckles. So like if like I remember I was fighting some company that was next to I forgot the name, but like I was just walking by the puckle just staggered with perimeter armor because those puckles would only do 20 damage to me while I had the alcohol buff, and I feel like puckles shouldn't just do nothing because you can just walk through a puckle, a large amount of puckles and not die. You know what I mean?
I think
like, do you guys
I think puckles are okay. I would say if you're a small group listening and you're not sure how to adequately defend your base, because you're not wrong about what you're saying, like they don't perform particularly well if you just have 100% common puckle. What I would say is what you need to be doing is you need to be building complex interior bases with lots of corners, and you need to have interior swivels. If you're a small group worried about defense, a 100% common swivel around a corner will wreck a guy in legendary who's buffed up. Like it will hurt. It will slow them down. That is your best bet for defense. Is an interior swivel. In terms of puckles, like you got to stack. I think that if you're a small group, maybe catapults are not a terrible option because they actually do decent damage, and they do a little bit of CC in a good way against ground troops. I don't have a great answer for that. I don't have a lot of experience defending on a small scale.
But if I will do raid a small group and I want to wipe them, you only have to stack them in the base and war token them and build a mortar. If they are the puckles, I think they are okay for defending the swivels. Okay, the swivels on ships. We did an event on this end of season 2 with ships, and we disabled the NPCs on Sugels, because yeah, there was really broken, still really broken, even with 100% ship or 100% swivel, you die with one shot with plate armor, or you are in broken bones.
Yeah,
If you are a small group,
ship swivels.
if
That's
you're
not
a small
ground
group
swivels.
and you get
Yeah,
attacked
ship
by
swivels are I would say, a slightly different topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to me, a ground puckle is not really a PvP off switch like a swivel in a boat is. A ground puckle is a mechanism by which you can find out where your enemies are because you can see the damage numbers. That to me is their most important purpose until you start placing mythical puckles or whatever. It softens them up. It suppresses them. It creates a zone. It's a function. It's a tool for zoning enemies. It's not a tool for stopping them in their tracks.
I think it's also just something that slows attacks down a lot.
Right, it slows them down.
It's
So
never
you
gonna
have
stop
time
the
to get
attack,
back.
yeah,
Exactly.
but you can make it take another half an hour to get to the main base if you just have a couple pocket towers in between, the attacker and the main base.
Totally agree, Tim. It is a tool that you use to gear up and slow down an enemy so that you have just a couple more minutes to gear up and fight. Because players are the best defense against players. It's the only viable defense against players at the end of the day.
Of course, you can reach everywhere with a cannon horse. Whatever defense you build, if there is no one defending, it will be break.
Precisely.
One thing that I don't like about pockets right now is that it's pretty counterintuitive, in my opinion, that you cannot backcheck or melee the NPCs. It's something that I think, especially newer players, will struggle with. Like when they see a pocket somewhere, and they actually have the balls to run up to it, and then they sit next to the NPC, and the only way to really destroy it is with a grenade or like a cannon. I think that's pretty strange.
I get that on the one hand. On the other hand, I feel like if a Bob tribe finally gets their puckles down, and one mega player happens to be there and just gets up behind him, like I can spawn in naked, build a sword for myself, and just go and murk an entire Bob tribe's defenses on Lawless. So I agree it's counterintuitive, but the flip side of the coin is also pretty costly, I think. Making them vulnerable to non-explosive damage, I think that would be really rough on newer players more so than older players.
I don't know. I think they kind of deserve it. They have blind spots like that.
I think they deserve it. Savage. Yeah. This game is so unforgiving.
I just think it's strange. Like, why can you not hit them? Because they're mounted to a gun or what? It doesn't make any sense.
That's what I said. That's what I said, because maybe they want to make a game that is so hard to write someone, because they find they were so easy to jump into the puckles with a blackjack and then all puckles gone, and then decide to change and put with cannon or grenades.
I still think it's really easy to raid people. I think it's really relatively easy to raid people. Like, I agree with the logic of your point. I think your reasoning is very on point, Tim. I think it would be net bad for the game if you could melee damage puckles, because that's just one more thing that if you don't have your placement exactly correct, your whole base can be undone by one guy with a sword. Like, that's just rough. The stakes are already so high, in land raiding, the stakes are already so high. If my base falls, I'm done with the game. Like, that's just adding one more thing that if you screw this up just a little bit, you're toast.
Maybe they have to get rid of the NPC, so it at least makes sense that you cannot hit it.
Yeah, auto turrets, perfect.
Yeah, then it's
well, I don't think I would want actual auto turrets. That would be just not.
Yeah,
because the game becomes
guns easy.
I think the reason why puckles are the way they are is because originally it was a band-aid fix, because there was no static defenses when the game originally came, and people were complaining they were just getting raided very easily. So they make the puckles the way they are now, but they didn't really ever added a static, like an actual static defense that was designed for that. Like, puckles were just like redesigned that way because people didn't have any kind of static defense.
Yeah, I think puckles are actually pretty great right now. Like, I think land defenses are pretty balanced right now.
I have big a problem with cannons.
With cannons, how so, really?
Yeah, I think right now to protect the harbor entrance, basically putting down puckets is more effective than putting down cannons, it feels like. Because the
Interesting.
cannons against like a 350% resistant ship, they will deal like 70 damage to the deck. That's it. They don't actually stop any ship from coming in. Like for me personally, when I hear cannons go off, or when we build cannons, we build them so we can hear them go off and we know something's going on. I don't expect a cannon in my harbor entrance to have a pop-up tank. I don't think it's ever happened.
Yeah.
Well, you have to put 100 cannons, but yeah, I think cannons in the entrance of the harbor is just for tell you that someone is at the entrance.
Yeah,
Because
I have
it's
a
to make a
semicircle
sound.
of-
It's so pointless.
Yeah.
Like, why do they even have a damage stat for ground cannons? They might as well remove the damage stat and buff the sound stat, so the sound
I
travels
like that.
faster.
Yeah. Just remove damage from large cannons on the ground.
Yeah,
and
if
just make
anything,
it sounds.
if anything, I would much rather them just add a new cannon type that's just made for just defense, like a land cannon or something. That's like, okay, because the cannons right now, they only use, like you guys said before, it's just like to let me know that something is fired near my harbor. That's really it.
No.
Yeah. I just don't know if I agree that it's a problem. I agree with your assessment. I think land cannons are pretty worthless against boats. I just don't think it's a big problem. I think the mortar buff fixed a lot of that because you can easily suppress a boat coming into your harbor. Like I think that they've done a decent job with puckles being somewhat weak against players and land cannons being somewhat weak against ships. It demands of groups to actively defend their territory. You can't just rely on infrastructure passive defenses to defend yourself. It's all just tools in your toolkit to increase your ability to respond to attacks with players. And I think that's good. I think that's healthy.
Yeah, I also think like overall, I don't think people have really figured out the proper way to build defenses yet. Like the game is still in early access, and people still trying to figure out ways to like either stack their defenses, the puckles, or like building towers.
I feel strongly that I figured
yeah.
that out.
Yeah, it's like an argument. Like it took people 2 years, like a couple years, to figure out proper static defenses placement. So I think it's going to be the same thing with Atlas.
Yeah, it's a meta that's still evolving. I feel like it's in a pretty stable spot. I feel like as I've fought my huge wars with in 3, I watched them slowly adopt all of our defensive infrastructure tactics, and it works really well. I think it's at a point now that I think it's unfortunate because I feel like there's just several megas where all this knowledge is super concentrated and it doesn't make its way out to the broader community, like how to build proper defenses, how to build proper cutters, how to build puckles that you can't easily grenade but have maximum line of sight. Like there's a lot of very small things that make or break defenses that if you don't do it just right, I think that you end up with the impression that static land defenses are really bad, when in reality, if you do it just right, they can be quite powerful.
Yeah. So jumping onto that, what do you guys think about the pillar change that they got reverted? Like there was a couple weeks ago where they made change pillar bases, so you have to put your pillar down on the ground, but then they reverted that. What do you guys think? I think that happened right after the podcast. So what do you guys think about
flag?
Those changes?
You're talking about the flag, the claim.
Yeah, the
There
claim
should
flag.
be a height limit. I think it's a really good update. It was in season 2, and I don't know why they released on season 3 again. There was a deja vu, and it was the reason that some of the players of Hacienda, some players leave the game because it will be exactly the same than season 2. I think it's something that will improve the ground PvP because if they don't touch the contesting system, it's so easy to contest a flag in your main island with 30 minutes only left. With your tribe, your main tribe in your main island, it's so easy because you only reach the circle and then you are going. The flag is going up. You don't need to do anything. But the people will go down to the ground to contest the flag. If you have the flag up, sometimes they can't even put the flag up there. So
Yeah. I think it's a problem right now. I didn't when they removed the height when they added the Z limit to the flag. in terms of the hype. I DM'd to Dolly and Jat saying that I was very supportive of it because I thought it was a pretty decent change. But in my view, the game should heavily favor defender. I think in this case it's a little too heavily with the current flag meta on top of a super tall pillar. But at the end of the day, like I don't think it's a huge problem. I think this season, my tribe of 130 people have maybe declaimed 4 islands that were contested. And like that's probably more than most other groups on the entirety of the server. So it's like it's a pretty terrible mechanic right now, but I feel like it's one that doesn't happen very often. And that combined with the fact that I think that the game needs to heavily favor defenders so that people actually stay in the game. It's not something that I want to see them spend any resources addressing right now, I guess I'm saying.
I think you have a really good view on this because you live on the west side of the map and you don't have these shitty ass pillars where the island, sometimes the entire island is just a pillar. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do on the island?
Oh, I lived on N4 last season and 05 the season before. Like, I know exactly what kind of pillars you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And
so those are the ones
there.
that need to be taken care of, not the mountains that you have on the west side of the map. Those are fine. Like, the ones you can run up with, I don't mind at all. And what bothers me most about this change is they had a really good idea the first time. The first idea was, hey, let's just make a maximum height for the flag. That was a really good idea. Then they found a way to implement this idea. They announced it, and they called it off because of backlash, because of kickback from the players. And then they say, okay, we're gonna go work on this.
They've done that 2 times now.
Yeah, a couple months later, they do the exact same thing again.
Yep.
They cave to a bunch of whiny bitches that don't know anything about the game, instead of trusting the correct instinct they had in the beginning. Like, there's a reason why they wanted to do it, and then just because some people were whining about it, they decided, oh, never mind, let's not do it. Some people are upset about this.
I think it's more nuanced than that, though. Like, I get where you're coming from. It's miserable to try and climb 10,000 feet in the air to contest a flag, and I say miserable. It's really just impossible. Those islands are untouchable.
Yeah, they are completely untouchable islands. And what's the point of having untouchable islands on one side of the map and not on the other side?
This is where I agree with you. This is where I agree. I agree with your assessment of the situation. I struggle with the solution. The flag z-axis limit would adequately address this very real problem with the game. However, I think the fundamental problem is they've done a really poor job of doing island design. Islands are totally unbalanced. To your exact point, the northeast of the world, the east of the world is just preposterous compared to the west. The islands are vastly more powerful if you're a defender.
Because, sorry, even if they change the claim height, people will still building in the high pillars. Doesn't matter if they change the flag, they will still build in. Yeah, but I don't know why half of the map has high pillar island and some pillars are really, really high.
Because they let the art department design the islands instead of the people who are thinking about balance. That's fine, but it's introduced a huge problem.
It's because when they designed all the islands, we had a vastly different claim system.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah.
And
season 1 was much easier to address. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, season 1, you could, if you got your hands on one pillar, you could just mortar up and take care of it.
Exactly.
That's a really good point.
It was perfect for that. Like, it wasn't even bad to have big pillars there.
That's a good point.
I don't think anyone wants to go back to season 1.
No. On net, we're in a vastly better place from the claim system compared to season 1. But to Tim's point, that the change has dramatically had a dramatically larger effect on the east side of the world than the west side in terms of the ability to crack them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think if they had put that change before when they had wiped the servers, I don't think that would have been too much of an issue. It's like kind of
would have been better.
I think it's too late to implement it in the middle of a season because that just. I think
you get more backlash in the middle of the season because people have built their entire strategy for the season-long event.
Yeah, the same with large cannons on deck. They change.
That was a good change.
Yeah, but I don't know why the second week of the release. So
better the second week than the second month. But I hear you, man. I hear you.
No, second month. Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, better the second week than the second month. But yeah, the mid-season changes it's rough, especially on big stuff like
with half of the tribe
because,
with a lot of ships.
Yeah, they have a lot to do when like they have a lot of work when they wipe the server and a lot of things to worry about. So I think sometimes a lot of the things just get dropped.
Yeah, balance changes.
Yeah,
very true, very true. And I want to give props to them because we're bringing up a lot of very valid issues right now. But the balance changes to ground combat and naval combat coming in to season 3, like that just quick list of changes they made, mostly just tweaking values, was huge and really fixed massive problems with the meta coming into season 3. So like, I have my issues with them and I bring them up often, but I will say like this group of devs is doing a really strong job on a lot of levels. They've been quiet recently, but my group is theorizing that there's a pretty big patch coming out shortly that accounts for the relative silence recently. But there have been some good big patches to address balance this season, earlier on.
Yeah, I think like I said on the previous podcast, I would much rather see a counter to pillars rather than just forcing people just not to build on them, because I think that would be much more effective and much more fun. Like whatever, like an item or tame or whatever they can give us just to counter pillar bases, I think that'd be just fine for me, in my opinion. But yeah, jumping on the teams. What do you guys? I think this is a topic that Felon wanted to talk about, but he's not here. What do you guys think about teams overall at the moment in the game? What's strong, what's weak, what could change, etc.?
Felon thinks that front swivels are too strong on horse carts right now. I think tames are fine. I think you change nothing about tames right now. I think the tame meta could use some variety would be nice because it's pretty set in its ways. But right now, fundamentally, tames have a critical role in ground PvP. Tames have a hard skill-based, team-based, coordination-based counter to them on ground that groups can execute with a cheap blackjack. Like, I think the tame meta is, I don't want to say perfect because everything could be improved upon, but I think the tame meta is in a really nice spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I think horses are a joke. Honestly, like horses have gone untouched for basically the start of the game. Right now, the horse basically has unlimited stamina, unlike all of the other ground tames. They can jump, unlike bears. They're the fastest animal in the game. The horse itself is the best torpor option in the game. Nature's Cry can one-shot people to knock them out. The back-facing flame swivel has been the #1 thing to do against other tames, and the front-facing grapeshot swivel is the best thing in the game right now to kill players. So the horse essentially covers everything in terms of tames, except for the crab can grab people, but that's it. Especially the front-facing swivel, you said like, oh yeah, you can counter it with some coordination or whatever. Like, if you send 3 guys with blackjacks to go blackjack the rider off the horse with the front-facing swivel, the guy with the front-facing swivel can shoot all of those players. He's gonna kill all of them. So what you need to do is you need to blackjack both players, or you don't need to blackjack the second guy. You just have to hit him to get him off the swivel. You have to take out both of them. It's completely pointless. Like I don't. The amount of effort you have to put into killing a front-facing swivel horse is nothing compared to the amount of effort it takes to tame or breed a horse and put a swivel on it. I think it's completely out of proportion, and I think they just forgot to balance horses for like half a year. I think they just forgot that horses have been the strongest tame by far.
I think horses are a dominant force on the ground for sure. And yeah, I don't disagree with you that 3 guys standing in an open plain against a horse are probably going to get smoked, no matter how skilled and coordinated they are. But like, when I think about when I've got 70 guys in channel on the ground fighting, and we see a horse, like that becomes priority #1. And when I've got 5 guys,
like you guys are the largest group on NA PvP. Nobody has 70 guys in the Discord channel.
When I have 5 guys on the ground in the Discord channel, it becomes not let's focus on killing the horse. It's we need to retreat to a different terrain. We need to retreat to trees and underbrush where you can bait the horse in, get it tripped up on something, and then you have to do the blackjack. It requires coordination skill, but not just like in a vacuum. You have to change your terrain against a horse. You need somewhere where you can get a little elevated. I agree, it's difficult. The horse is really strong, but I just think there's adequate counters right now that they don't need to make a huge push to rebalance tames.
Yeah, I think everything here in the game has a counter. Sometimes, in the open ground, open field, it's so hard to fight a horse if they have grave shot. But yeah, the counter will be get on the thumb with stones, with trees, where you can hide, where you can when he could get stuck. Yeah, but sometimes the swivel are too annoying with when someone builds 200 damage swivels and it won't shot you from 20 meters away.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
in my
horses,
opinion, they should just get rid of swivels from horses entirely, or nerf them severely, which they should be doing anyways. But I think there would be a lot more variety in tames if horse swivels, especially horse swivels and horses in general, would be nerfed. I think we might actually start seeing a bear, because I don't think anyone has seen a bear in PvP
no,
in like the last
they
half a year.
are
What's
just
the
for
point of them?
farming fiber.
Yeah, bears are really only good for
Horses are for
cannons.
swivel with
And
grave
even
shot,
yeah.
for fire, cannon, even with nothing, just a good rider jumping, bola, and with sword to everyone can do a lot more damage than with another.
Yeah, I mean, horses are really strong. They kind of have a hard counter in the form of a blackjack climbing picks and terrain. But that's to your point, it's not really a hard counter, it's just a counter. I think that in terms of developmental resources, they need to fix things that don't have a good counter right now. But yeah, horses could probably be toned down. I wouldn't totally disagree with that. I just don't think they're in. I don't think it's a dire imbalance. I think it's just not very great right now. I would put it maybe somewhere on the level of like shields or pike stuns, like not game breaking, but
I
really,
still don't
really
understand
strong.
how would you blackjack a front-facing swivel?
You have to bait it into trees.
So all the rider has to do is not be dumb, or what? I don't
Yeah,
understand.
I think it would be
Get away. Yeah,
I think it would be good if they add like a counter to tames, like an item, like maybe like
a blackjack.
maybe like not blackjack, maybe like bear traps or something that can slow down a horse, like pikes that you can just deploy in the ground and would just slow down a team that passes through, or something that just like
Yeah, I mean, I
prevents
just feel like
a fast team to
grenade, a well cooked grenade, 2 well cooked grenades can rip almost any swivel off of any horse. And a blackjack can knock off the rider, which gives you enough time to cook those grenades and get them out there. Like, I don't disagree that it's strong, really strong, maybe inappropriately strong. I just think that there's enough like gameplay mechanics to where you can try and work around it that it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, as you said, only 2 grenades or 3 grenades, and then the cannon and swivel gone, and he has to wait 10, 15, or 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that timer change was a really good fix to their strength in a lot of ways. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. I don't feel it as a huge problem.
I think it's a bit of a problem. I just don't think people have really maybe not figured out exactly how to properly counter them. Like,
Well, I think
or maybe there's a
Tim is a
fundamental
pretty
problem with it. Maybe
experienced
we should
round
add something.
PvPer. Like, I don't want to take away from that. I think.
Yeah,
that he
I wouldn't
knows
want
more
to.
or
I
less
wouldn't
what's
want to
going on.
nerve them too hard to the point that's just useless. But I can understand there's a problem with them in certain situations, especially if you have a lot of flat terrain and there's not that many trees and it's just an open field.
I'm
I
just
think
happy
it's
you can't
also
put an
like the
NPC on
amount
him
of
anymore.
effort the horse guys put into it. Like the dude on the horse, okay, he has to maneuver a little bit, but the guy on the swivel, let's talk about grapeshot swivel first. The front facing grapeshot swivel, he just picks a side and he keeps pressing his left mouse button. Like he's not some aim god or something. He just keeps shooting randomly, and he will get kills that way. He doesn't have to do anything. And the guy on the flame swivel against tames, all he has to do is he has to move his mouse around really quickly, like 360 as much as he can, and hold down the flame button. Both of those things are not even close to what the guy has to do to counter this. Like he has to somehow dodge the
The skill gap.
and the flame,
The skill gap
and
to
somehow
deploy a good
blackjack
asset
it.
is definitely big.
Yeah.
I agree, because the horse can be an incredibly powerful tool with, maybe your B team player left clicking on the back. I see your point, and I think you're making a good point. Yeah, I think the flame zoning is really interesting. I feel like I used to think it was a much bigger problem than I do today. I think it's still super strong. Like a flame horse is everything. A rear-facing flame is everything, and the zoning that it provides is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. See, I also kind of struggle with this. I don't face this problem as much this season, but that's because I faced it so much last season that we've built our entire land building strategy around not being very vulnerable to these things, just by not being super high up, because we're in the west side of the world, obviously, but high up enough so that those things don't play a huge factor in places where I'm forced to fight. So I can pull up to high ground and not have any ground level assets that are going to get trashed by that stuff. So if you're a newer player and living on the beach and you don't really have a choice but to fight on the ground level because that's where your stuff is, I can see how it would be a much more front of mind thing.
All right. What do you guys think about rock golems, dragons, fire elementals, and cyclops?
The only thing that work, I think, well, because I saw the 4 in action, is Drake, because only fly and can get a lot of weight, and the Cyclops, because the other two are pretty useless. One of them, the fire elemental, can be right, and the rock elemental takes a lot of damage from grenades and mortars.
I think they're obnoxious.
Yeah, I personally, maybe some bias, but I'm not a big fan of like the dragon right now. And being able to just like, Tim knows about this. Just throw grenades, just grapple to a dragon and just throw grenades from the dragon. It's like, okay, I can't even reach this dragon. It's just like bombarding me with nades from the sky, and I'm like, all right, boys, I don't know what to do here, but we're getting like. This is like World War II. We're back at
an undisclosed location in my main base. I have a box called Break Glass in case of Drake, and it's full of mythical carbines. And like, there's a good counter to dragons, but I think that it's an obnoxious, dumb mechanic that really doesn't belong in the game. Like these mythical tames, they're used almost never, and when they are used, they either get blown out of the sky by Chris Columbus and I gliding around easily. Season 2 Wars.
No, I disagree with that because I do like seeing the mythical themes because something rare that you see is like, oh shit, it's like a dragon coming in, right? But I'm not a big fan of like things like that where like if you use a dragon or like let's say a rock element, it should be only you being able to use that, not like things like being able to grapple to it and just like use grenades from it. Like if you see a dragon, it should just be the dragon rider that I'm dealing with, not any other things that are added to it, because I feel like that's just, especially since you're dealing with air, I feel like it's, maybe I'm biased, but I'm just not a big fan of like having to deal with air tames, because air tames.
I will cede the point that it is definitely good for like immersion and like actual just fun, excitement, variety in the game. I really enjoy it when a dragon rolls up from that perspective because I think it's fun and it's like, okay, like we got to focus, like whoever's attacking me is very serious about it because they've gone to the trouble and spent the gold, whatever. I just think from a balance perspective, none of them are particularly good and they almost never get used. I don't know that I've ever seen an actual PvP attack that's centered around a mythical tame other than a Drake. And it's just like, why are they in the game? Like, why are resources being spent on this? Why are people like us wasting our breath talking about how to balance something that just has such a low impact on the game overall?
Yeah, but because they are not even balanced. You have to go with a lot of gold that only means to use the alpha tribes, the big tribes, all you can use, and you have to go to the free port with a lot of gold, buy and go, then tame, and then sail back to the island, and then you sometimes drakes and cyclops, and in 30 minutes done. It's done, and you expend like 3 hours to able to use, and then only 30 minutes.
Right. I don't think they have a great place in the game. I think that they're cool and they add a wow factor to a big PvP engagement. I think it's fun in that regard. I don't think they add very much to combat, and I don't think they add very much to the game because, to your exact point, it's only a handful of groups that would ever even consider using them. And it's just like, why waste the resources thinking about how to balance these tools when in reality they just have they don't have a good effect on the game overall, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think dragons are unbalanced though. Just gotta have a lot of carbines.
I think they're unbalanced in lag because when
True.
I was sitting on
everything's
that-
unbalanced in lag. Yeah.
Yeah.
when I was sitting on that dragon throwing down grenades on Mr. Dolphin's main base, the only thing that really saved the dragon was the lag because
True.
they couldn't reload the carbines. The puckets weren't reloading because of the lag.
Grenades
And-
reload fine enough though.
Mhm.
The grenades even get duped in lag. Like you
Yeah.
can throw multiple grenades in the lag just by clicking
That's
really
just a graphical bug, though. Like they're not.
It's a graphical bug, but your point absolutely stands. Grenades retain a much higher proportion of their effectiveness in lag compared to the hard counters to dragons. So in that sense, yes, lag really breaks it. Absolutely.
But then imagine a Drake that you pair with a Drake and in a sea fight in 6 versus 6 galleons, then a Drake will be, I think, will be the answer for the win.
I just think a Drake's going to get left in the dust in that scenario, though. They're very slow compared to a proper bow.
I think it's just hard to get the dragon exactly ready for when the ship PvP happens because ship
That's a
PvP
better
is
point,
sometimes
too.
it's like
Yeah.
it's like
Mhm.
once a week, and when it happens, it just happens. Like in a matter of a
Mhm.
couple of minutes, you just know, okay, we're going there. We're gonna go ship PvP. It's an hour away, and the fight takes 10 minutes. The fight's over. And
Yeah,
getting a dragon
working
is going to
backwards from-
Freeport,
yeah, exactly.
going to the grid to tame the dragon, driving over there with the dragon. It takes
Yeah,
such a
but-
long time. You cannot bring a dragon in time to ship PvP unless you
Agreed.
know like a day ahead of time that there's ship PvP happening.
Okay, you could prepare an attack with ships and prepare like bait them to take ships and use a Drake. Yeah, but as you say, it's so hard to get. It's pretty impossible to get a Drake in a sea fight. But I think if a Drake goes into your galley or your brick, you are done.
Yeah, true. I mean, I've been on, I would say like 15 to 20 dragons in season 2 and season 3 combined, and it feels like that 80% of them have been a waste. You
Oh.
destroy a couple of pockets, or maybe
Mhm.
get
Kill mortars on the top of
finish.
one mortar tower. Wow.
Yeah,
Good 4
It's-
hours spent, everybody.
yeah.
Yeah,
It feels really bad, and the only time it ever felt really good to use a dragon was when we harbor ran FO in season 2, and we brought a dragon to a harbor run, and the entire point of the dragon was only to kill guys on mortars and anyone who would get on a ship, and it worked out really well, and it felt so much more rewarding than using it to destroy static defense like pockets. That's a position where I really like the dragon, but everything else it doesn't really feel good to use it.
In that situation, would you agree that like it's so easy to shoot a dragon down though in that scenario though? I feel like there's a good counter to it. Is I guess the point I'm making.
What do you mean? Like when
Like,
the harbor run
if-
situation or what?
Yeah, if you're doing a harbor run with a
Yeah.
dragon, it's I think that's probably the best use case I've heard for it, other than maybe what happened in J3. But at the same time, like I don't feel like the dragon in particular is very unbalanced because carbines are pretty good hard counter.
No, I would even argue that it's too weak.
Yeah, well, I think it's weak for what it costs, but
Yeah.
relative to like just the unexpected nature of having to deal with an aerial attack, I don't think it should be any stronger than it is. I think it should be relatively weak because it is such an X factor to have to plan for.
I think even with the low HP the Drake has, even with a lot of players with good carbines, the Drake and the other rider have enough time to break all the mortars towers, all mythical towers, and even with 50 people shooting, sometimes the Drake is not in the range. Sometimes you have towers not in the range of others, and yeah, I think you have time enough to break everything, even if they put less HP. Because sometimes I think you get less HP than in season 2. We already tamed three Drakes in this season, and was just for break mortars and puckles, and they
Yeah.
are just for that. But yeah, weak in compare or comparing what they cost and taming and take to the sail back to the island, but the Drake have enough time to break a lot of things before he die.
Yeah,
Even
I
with a
mean,
lot of people with
Drake can.
carbines, when you get attacked by a Drake, a lot of people of the Alliance join. Everyone is with carbine shooting, focusing the dragon, but he has enough time to break everything and focus in other things.
I mean, I like that aspect of the dragon, though. I don't love the dragon overall, but I like that it mixes up the ground combat and the island defense, so that you have to totally refocus your efforts on the dragon. You have to reposition resources. Like, you have to think in a slightly different way about what your priorities are, and it really forces your hand. I don't hate that, and I do think that this is going to hurt me to say, but because I do think dragon. I think having an aerial attack is a really annoying thing in a game like this, but it forces you to think about the top of your base in a way that you otherwise wouldn't have to. And it also allows you to do something like at the center point of my island at my main base, I have like a max height mortar tower. Those mortars are not vulnerable ever, except to a dragon. And without the dragon there as an X factor, like, I can just say, like, I'll sit on my invulnerable mortars and shoot. And, like, even if I piss off 1,000 players who want to bring the entire might of the world against me, I can just mortar them until oblivion. If they truly hate me enough, they can bring 3 dragons, and they might not be able to crack my main base because of a box of carbines, but at least they can rip the mortars off the top of my base and actually, like, have a vector of attack from that point. That's the only thing I think they bring into balance in the game. And I think it's also a really minor thing because it happens so infrequently.
But jumping into that, so recently on the charity event, I think we talked about a little bit about this before the podcast. They announced one of the lead designers was on the Art Charity stream, and they talk about a few stuff, but the most important thing was that there was no new ships coming anytime soon. So whatever Captain Lock or whatever big update we're gonna be getting, there's no new ships coming out. You guys have something to say about that, or in general, what do you guys?
I mean, that's in alignment with their roadmap. I don't know why they would specifically say that, because it's causing everybody to wring their hands and be like, "Where's the new ships?" But I think it's in alignment with their 4-stage roadmap that they already laid out. I wouldn't go around advertising that they aren't going to add more ships to the ship game anytime soon, but it didn't surprise me at all. Like, I feel like that's expected.
I think I've like more of a personal problem with, like, not a problem with, like, how both, like, I spend a lot of us like enjoyed the land PvP, right? But I think I would like to get more like boat PvP. Like, sometimes, like, we have some like small skirmishes with SDC, and that was a lot of fun here and there, but that doesn't really happen very often. I would like to see more.
The biggest problem with boat PvP is the fact that it happens so infrequently. And there are many reasons for that. The main reasons that there's not good boat PvP is, 1, there's no network of jet streams or fast lanes or anything in the world. So for me to position a fleet to actually take on another enemy fleet worth fighting is a 7-hour commitment, of which 30 minutes might be PvP. It's just never going to happen in that context. 2, the second biggest problem with boat PvP right now is the power gap. Or that's the third most thing. The third biggest problem is the power gap between common boats and mythical boats. If I have 5 common boats, I should have a fighting chance against a mythical boat. That's why I really believe that. And then I think the second most important thing is just the lack of faucets for blueprints is staggering. My fleet is so limited by blueprints, and what happens as a result of not having enough blueprints, like good mythical and legendary blueprints, is that I treat my fleet as very precious, not because I can't replace it by leveling, and not because I can't replace it with exotics, but because I can't get my hands on the blueprints to replace my fleet, and therefore my fleet is a very finite asset, and therefore I'm using it very sparingly compared to what I would be using it to do if I could actually relatively easily replace an end-game fleet. Those are my views. Transportation,
I agree.
Blueprints, and power gap between good, quote, good and bad shit.
I totally agree. I think, like, a lot of PvP happens when you're like near a power stone, or when you're like power stone, and then people just like a lot of people that had with SDC was like because someone happens to be a power stone, and then that leads to people just bringing out boats. I would like for them to like. What do you guys think about them adding more like kind of like world events where like something spawns, multiple stuff is spawned during the map. That doesn't necessarily have to be in a Power Stone, but it can like lure players to go out there and just like fight over stuff, right?
So I used to play a game called Darkfall, and one of the best things the devs did in that game was they added something called a sea tower. And the sea tower existed out in the middle of the ocean in something similar to a Power Stone in this game. And what would happen is it was sort of a central thing, kind of like the Kraken that you would shoot at, and you could win the sea tower by shooting at it. The sea tower went live. There were two. One went live every 40 hours, and one went live every 30 hours, which means that it's not ever specific to a single time zone. It's always moving through different time zones because it's not on a multiple of 24 time cycle. But that means that it's an incentive for people to show up at a specified time with a specified strength of fleet to capture an objective that gives you, it gave some relatively minor global buff in the other game, but it incentivized you to bring huge naval assets to bear in a place where you weren't going to have to fight in lag because it was in the middle of nowhere. Combat would not be happening there otherwise because it's just empty ocean other than once every 30 hours. And, you don't have to fight other people's land defenses or deal with that. You're just going to be fighting enemy boats. I agree with you that the game really needs something like that.
Mm-hmm. We talk about that the North Drive that they could add like global events like a message or something like spawn in the map, in your map for everyone, and then you have to sail to get it with a nice reward, so everyone will join the fight.
I think those things already kind of exist, except there's no global message of where it's going on. Like one hotspot is the Golden Age, where people farm the SOTDs, and the other hotspot I think was supposed to be the ghost ship, but it's basically people just spawn
the ghost ship,
camp the spawn. That's it. But I think those two things were those two things were trying to get people in the same
What
spot.
an awful PvE feat. Oh gosh, don't get me started on the ghost. I agree with you, Tim. I think that the Power Stones do a decent job of concentrating small-scale organic PvP, but I do think that we need a way to concentrate large-scale organic PvP, and I think that kind of event with a specified timer would do a good job of that. The only good fleet fight that I've had this entire season, like the only huge, we have 8 galleons out, and M3 and G&T had 5 or 6 or 7 galleons out. Like that started as a skirmish in the Power Stone, and that snowballed as each of us got more ships out and more ships out and more ships out. And that was amazing and incredible. But the confluence of circumstances that have to come together for that to happen right now
it's so
is
rare.
so difficult and rare. If I had a timer and I knew every 30 hours that I needed to have 5 mythical galleons to take this objective, I'd probably do it.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, well, I mean, event for that would be really nice. Yeah. Sorry, Tim.
I think having more incentives to ship PvP is maybe like 20 fixes like 20 or 30% of the problem. I think the bigger issue right now is the time it takes to level a ship, the time it takes to collect blueprints for the ship, especially on the leveling part, like the scaling from 1 to 42, it's fine, like the normal exponential scaling, but 42 to 52, in my opinion, should be linear scaling for experience, because you're already gated behind the 200% shipyard.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but that should be way quicker, because people are always so scared to lose their shit. And if it would just be a lot easier to get, I'm not saying everybody should get a free mythical ship. That's not what I'm saying here. But I think the time spent on acquiring a very good ship should be vastly reduced, and then you would automatically see more ship PvP because people would care less about their pixels.
But I agree wholeheartedly.
Tim, don't you think this has a problem to do with like blueprints and like having to grind for like all the resources?
Well, I think Tim is making that exact point.
Yes,
that's only number 2 on my list, though. Like I think the most important thing is how far away you have to go to find a worthy ship fight, and the travel time to get there. Both are huge problems.
I think if
you don't find.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in the previous podcast. They can just reduce travel time in some way or form, or
But that's
I think-
phase 2 of the
Yeah.
the entire roadmap.
Right, I
so-
agree, Tim. You gotta fix both things. You gotta fix the rarity of blueprints and the difficulty of getting a max level ship, and you have to fix travel time. If you only fix one or only fix the other, you're still not going to see much ship PvP because both independently really put a tamp down on ship PvP.
Yeah, and I think right now the way blueprints roll, like over 99.9% of blueprints you find are garbage when you farm
Yes.
ship blueprints. And it's
what-
actually I'm not exaggerating. We've actually done the math on it. Like 1 in 1,000 blueprints is good. That's roughly the number. If you collect every single blueprint, like if you leave the 5.7 flotsam in the water, then of course it's gonna be screwed. But it's around 1 in 1,000. So, in my opinion, like the minimum amount of loot you get should either be increased by a lot, or just the quantity should be increased so much that 1 in 1,000 is actually something where you get 5 good blueprints a day. And right now that's not the case. So if they would just, I wouldn't even mind if they tripled the amount of Ship of the Damned in Golden Age. I personally, I would welcome it. Or if they would double the loot from Ship of the Damned, I don't think that's too much. Like I don't think the game is that fragile that it would put everything out of proportion.
I agree with everything you just said. I especially agree that blueprints are far and away the biggest constraint. The second biggest constraint almost doesn't even touch blueprints as a constraint. And like I fall asleep to nightmares of mythical, yes. 209% damage, yes. Catapult, again.
Yeah.
Like, they've got to fix the loot tables, man.
Yeah,
The
I
amount
mean,
of
they either
scissors
fix the
and all
loot
that crap
tables
is
or they just
awful.
add so much stuff that the loot table is fine. But right
Yeah,
now,
but,
it's too much effort to build a really high quality ship. It's way too much effort.
Yeah, I think it's a small point, but I really want to make it. There's no joy in looting anything from PvE in this game right now. It's just a dread of another thing that I'm going to have to popcorn. Not only do they need to vastly improve the rate at which good blueprints drop, but every time I take all out of a box, if I get a blueprint, I want to be at least have I want it to be a good enough chance to be something good that I get a little excited at seeing a blueprint. Right now, I just get triggered when I see a blueprint because it's just one more thing I'm going to have to sort through hundreds of bookshelves later that week.
True. But
Like,
I like suggesting stuff that's easy for them to implement, and just
but it is
making
so
3 times as many blueprints spawn is a lot easier than actually removing some blueprints from the drop table or removing like the lower
The
end of
tables are
blueprints.
just set values. All they have to do is play with the distribution of what
Yeah,
drops on the
maybe.
tables and remove certain things. Like, you never need medium sales for anything. The devs have completely refused to make them worthwhile for anything. So take them off all the tables. It's so easy.
Yeah.
They're literally just tables in a SQL server.
Level 60 Galleon and it drops mythical foot ladder.
Oh, that's the best, dude.
I
It
love
hurts
it.
me.
I love it. I love it when that happens. And other thing too is the sales, because the big difference between the same two galleons, okay, same plan, same level, same everything, but the sales are different. Only the sales are different.
Sales are the most important constraint in the game right now.
I
Totally
think
agree.
I think it's the most important, because
Totally agree.
if you run so much faster and you have more
Large
acceleration,
handling sales are the
angle,
only blueprint that really matters in the game. You can make up for everything else, but large handling sales are everything at the end game.
Yep.
I also want to say, while we're talking about this, we kind of skipped over Naval Meta, which I'm also relatively pleased with, because I think is relatively balanced, especially with the removal of intelligence sets that really set speed and handling sales back. Speed sales are still worthless, but at least they don't get spanked so hard by handling sales anymore. I will say, on the subject blueprints, they also really need to increase not only the rate at which ships are dropping them and the quality that ships are dropping them, however you want to skin that cat, but they also have got to add some more variety for ship blueprints. For the love of God, let me farm the Kraken for blueprints. Let me farm the Yeti for blueprints. I have no reason to repeat those PvE feats right now. Give me a reason to. give me some other mechanism to farm high-end blueprints than just rolling the dice.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that the last one. It would be nice if they give us the ability to just run those like world events multiple times, like do the Jedi Cave. Like I only done Jedi Cave once, and I just don't need to do it ever again. Like they put so much effort into making these beautiful caves or like stuff, and you only get to do it once.
It's so easy. Just put a handling sail blueprint in the Yeti when it dies. It's so please, I'm begging.
They could add like loot chests that you can like inside the cave, and you just run that cave multiple times and just loot those chests, and eventually you get a good BP and stuff like that. And that gives an incentive to people just to go out there and just like run them again, you know.
Oh, while we're talking about awful, terrible, broken things, sorry, this is a little off topic.
Go ahead.
Remove the L3 cave spawn rate. It ruins geopolitics. It concentrates all power in the hands of the 3 tribes that can compete for it. It's a terrible, awful thing to have in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, who are number 2 and 3?
L3, the L3 cave.
No, I mean, you said 3 tribes. Who are number 2 and 3?
SDC, Death and Taxes, and CSTG. If any one of those 3 wants that cave, it's going to always go to one of those 3. Like, we might trade wins and losses with one another in the cave, but no other group has any chance of going into that cave if one of those other 3 groups is there, except for one of those 3 groups. And having it so that literally only 3 groups have access to it leaves maps in the dust. Leveling in the cave is 10 times better than doing the best map run. It's worthless, it's awful, and it really just shatters geopolitics because instead of me focusing in my corner of the world and slowly building up, I'm sailing across the world to compete for a cave that makes no sense.
I disagree. But that's probably because I've been in the cave so much. I think it's...
Yeah, you've benefited, but everybody else on the server is screwed except for you and me, who have spent 30 hours in the cave. I mean, I've benefited. I'm level 101.
I think ideally would be... I think because also you get a lot of gold from it too. Like you don't really.
Yes, it ruins the gold faucet. There's no reason to farm gold anywhere else. And you have the groups that have that thing on lockdown. They will never be constrained by gold again this season ever.
They shouldn't be a constraint on gold anyways. Like if you do a fish. Okay, so let's just do some of the numbers here.
I mean,
if you
I'm
do the cave somewhat efficiently, you're looking at around 140, 150k experience an hour. If you do maps efficiently, you can definitely reach above 70k experience an hour. So, in my opinion, considering you need to be basically on top of the game, that's pretty fair reward, in my opinion, having double the best XP rate of everyone else.
I disagree. Because Megas already have such a massive advantage over everybody else. Like, the idea that they should also get additional rewards for being the strongest is preposterous.
Yeah, of course, if there are 9 Power Stone, but one of them are overpowered, of course there will be a problem because the big tries will focus on that. And
but C6
it's happening in both servers.
Yeah, but C6 is 2/3 of what L3 is. Why don't people just go, like the smaller groups just go C6? There's like 2 other caves that have, because the thing that makes L3 so powerful is there's, what is it, 3 or 4? I don't remember. Yeah, it's 4. 4 different spawns where the soldiers spawn. And there are other caves with 2 and 3 spawns. It's basically the exact same thing, except the XP rate is half or 2/3.
That's only partially correct right now, because
I think the level
3, an enormous number of the cave spawns are actually just straight broken, and they will not spawn. And the other thing is, once upon a time, all the caves spawned like L3, and then they fixed all of them, and then they added L3 actually a little bit later, and it never got fixed. So, like, this is clearly incontroversion of the game design, and like, there's a reason that this is incontroversion of the game design, because it's awful. It's just awful.
Okay, but so to get to level 150, the maximum level in the game, it's 38 million experience. So if you farm the cave at 145k experience now, you're still looking at 280 hours of gameplay just sitting in that cave. The one monotone thing that,
Yeah,
after
but
a
if you
couple of
don't
hours,
have
nobody
access
wants
to
to
the
do.
cave, you're looking for 1,500 hours to do the same thing.
Yeah, but we can agree that both are stupid.
Oh, I don't disagree. I just one is incredibly broken, and the other needs addressing. And the L3 thing is incredibly broken because it also allows whoever is geographically close to it, it completely destroys the gold economy because everybody else in the world, except for the few tribes that can farm and extract gold from the L3 cave, everybody else they need that gold, but the person who owns the cave is no longer gold constrained, and they can just buy everything up forever. I just
What
think
do you
it's
need the gold for? Like, are you guys, or is anybody low on gold because they cannot enter the
No,
cave?
I'm not low on
I
gold
think
in
the
terms of
issue-
paying for my island or paying for my defenses.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it allows whoever owns the cave to go out and buy a much larger share of the blueprint economy or the other economy from other people using that gold in a way that's really it makes no sense.
I think overall, I think we all agree if one place or two places, specifically the whole map and all the tiles, is just too overpowered. It just needs to be nerfed in some way or form. Because if you're just getting all your gold from just one single tile, one single cave, then I think that's regardless of where it is. I think that there's a problem.
It screws you over for content too, because when my guys are like, "What are we going to do tonight?" Well, what's the one thing that's twice as good as the next best thing we could do? Oh, we're going to go and do the thing that's twice as good as the next best thing we can do, and that's the L3K. It's goofy.
I am wrong, but maybe I am wrong. But the levels of the L3 of the damage are higher than other caves.
They're relatively the same, but they consistently spawn at the high level. Like my D12 cave right next to my main island, no Army of the Damned spawned. Spiders respawn, but no Army of the Damned spawned. Other islands, other power stones, once you've killed the Army of the Damned for a couple of hours, they start spawning at level 1, and then you get Jack for X. The L3 cave will forever spawn at quadruple the rate of the next best cave, high level NPCs to kill. It's ruined. It makes zero sense to do anything except for
and the entrance is of the beach with nothing aggressive than a wolf.
Yeah, but even if it was deep in the island and you had to kill the Yeti 5 times to get to it, it would still make no sense to do anything else. Like, the fix has got to be to just nerf the L3 cave into the ground, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think it's a good thing that we have like this PvP hotspot for high-end companies right now, and a place where they clash without having to say like 10
if you're gonna have it like that, it should be for all the caves. To be honest, if you like,
they could put the others. They could put them like in somewhere in line. Like maybe not give them 150k experience now. Maybe give them 100k. So if you want the best of the best, you still go to the one spot. I think that would be fair.
Tim, I totally see where you're coming from. I think you're analyzing the problem correctly in terms of it being a hotspot for PvP and that being an incredibly big plus in the plus column for the L3 cave. But that's you and I fighting for scraps of PvP. Like, that's the one little bone that we've got that's the only good opportunity for high-end PvP. L3, that's a band-aid for high-end PvP, and we deserve a much better mechanism to get high-end PvP than a broken cave that everybody's desperate to farm.
Yeah, but you're saying you're just missing another part of the game then. Like this gets you like a niche of the game that we don't have anywhere else. If I come with my guys to Death in Texas main island, we're gonna have a server at 255 ping.
And
we won't have any decent ground PvP. It's gonna be boring for everyone. Nobody's gonna enjoy it. If we meet up in L3, there's 0 structures. There's maybe 5 boats. There's no lag. We actually get some good ground PvP. That's what I mean. That's what I like about the cave.
I think.
I mean, the ground PvP is not the best.
Honestly,
you guys sit in the cave and we sit outside, but
yeah, but
I think you get some lag-free PvP.
If there was like a specific spot for like the best XP, the best blueprints, they do need to address the traveling, because if it takes Aurelius 7 hours to get to L3, and it only takes me maybe an hour or 30 minutes to get there, and it's kind of a problem where like one group can't really
Right. It
contest
relates
that.
the geopolitics in a way that just makes no sense. Because I have to project power across the entire world, and you have to go a couple tiles. Now, like, I don't want to take away from the point you're making, though. It is good that we can actually meet and have ground PvP in a place that isn't just one side hiding under puckles and 255 ping, because that's just awful dog shit content. But the flip side is just like that. You and I are having a little bit of fun with it, but it's just screwing over the rest of the world economy and the rest of everybody else's ability to close the power gap between their characters and our characters.
I don't know about the economy argument, because in my opinion, there's close to no economy in the game right now.
I don't totally disagree with you on that. The idea that there can be one place to get gold that is three times superior to the next best source is silly.
I tried to get my player shop working, but people only want honey.
They need
Dude, I put a player shop on i5, okay? And I put like 20 rows of honey in. I was like, oh man, the gold app gives this much. I'll only put 7 because then I will only charge me like 1 gold every 50 minutes, right? So I was like, okay. And I actually made a decent amount of gold because they didn't realize Xbox players would actually buy honey. So I was like, what the fuck? But it's like, I will get like every now and then messages like people actually buying honey from me. Like, I wish
they need a market.
So I think the market does work, but the problem is that there's no. The gold upkeep is just too much, and I really wish they would let me sell tames.
Like, I don't disagree with the gold upkeep. You could tweak the value to make it better. They need a global market. This game is so high on entropy already. Having to know where to go, what tile, what island in the white tile, and what player shop to go to, that's so goofy. It makes finding information impossible. Like, they have got to introduce a global market system that has some sort of fee associated with the distance away from, where the buyer and the seller are.
I'm not a big fan of like having to use third-party systems like Discord to just like be able to like trade stuff.
Yeah, there's no other way to know where to go to buy stuff, though. Exactly. We need a global market system.
Like for example, I had like it was like a couple of weeks ago. I had like a couple of Xbox players asking me if I was selling themes. Like, I wish I could sell you themes, like in the market, but there's like no way for me to put a theme in the market and just like sell it. Like in a player shop, for example. Like little things like that.
While we're sitting around, sort of, maybe, I don't know if we're wrapping up here a little bit, I want to throw out 3 big ideas that I have to fix what we would agree is the lag problem right now before we end up here. And maybe you guys can shoot them down or think about them a little more.
Yeah, we're on open table. Go ahead.
1, we need a barn that you can put animals in that's huge and hard to defend, whatever you want to do to balance it. You need a barn to put animals in so that 5,000 animals standing around on a server don't just ruin everybody's gameplay experience. 2, you need a massive structure that does more or less the same thing for ships, in my opinion. I'm less confident in that one than the barn, but the ability to put ships away so that they're still risky, so that they're still on the coastline. I think ships in a bottle is unbalanced because you just put them on top of a pillar and you never have anything at risk. But like a large harbor that has to be half in the water, like a large shipyard structure to put ships away so that they're not just sitting there eating the server alive for no reason 24 hours a day. Like, those 2 things would do so much for server performance across the entire world. And then the third one is, I genuinely think that the current NPC system should be scrapped, and I think that NPCs should become contracts that look like a sheet of music in your inventory. They weigh 100 pounds, and if you want to put an NPC on a swivel, you walk up to it, you open its inventory, and you put a contract on it, and an NPC pops up, so that they don't exist as an independent entity in the world, sucking down server resources, sitting there trying and just banging your head on your keyboard, trying to get them to follow you up a hill. Like, all that needs to go. It adds nothing to the game except for lag and annoyance. Those are my 3 quote-unquote big ideas to think about lag. I have a lot of systems that I would love to have a conversation about overhauling, but we all agree lag is the biggest thing, and I think those 3 things would do an enormous amount to lower lag on the servers.
I think we talk about the chip in a battle and like being able to put your teams on, convert them to an item just on the real box. I think that would be really good stuff to do. I don't know about the NPC thing, but I think we all been asking for like being able to convert our teams to items and then get them out of whatever barn or like whatever you want to call it. Because I would like solve so much performance issues because a lot of people use like alternative tribes, like
I have 7 breeding tribes right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like we like you they put a time limit, but we can bypass the time limit by just doing allied tribes and like just keep breeding and breeding and breeding. And
yeah,
like,
I think it has to be a barn. I think if you can convert it into an item,
it just needs to be anything. Like
bad.
we have like, for example,
but yeah, it needs something.
Like since we're on opening table that now, I was gonna say, what do you guys think about bringing back the magic? We used to have like the tarot magic tier, but they removed it because they never added anything. What do you guys think about a magic tier that adds like certain feats that on the open water, for example, like add a magic feat that gives you reverses, like increase your reverses speed for a certain amount of seconds, right? Or like increase your turning speed on your sails for a certain amount of seconds. Like in certain situations, you're going against the wind, and then you increase your speed when going against the wind for like that certain amount of time. Like, what do you guys think about something like that? Do you think that would be break the meta or like or
I was talking about that all the season 1 when I saw the skill, the tarot skill, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I said like when you level up on intelligence, you can read that it will be less cooldown on feats and magical skills. But I don't know where the magical skill. And we was thinking all the time about they will improve something like that, like you could get yourself out of fire, you could run faster for a short time, of course, but I don't know how they did with the tarot. Maybe they changed for the skills of the level 50 galleon and other stuff, but yeah, it should be something really good, like the mythicals, something to counter the mythical or tames or whatever. It would be very good. Another point of the game, because in the announcement trailer, when I saw their elementals and all the creatures from the Power Stone, I mean that you could fight them. Maybe yeah, with magical skills, not like solo player, but with a group. But yeah, it's not. It's nothing. It's nothing like that. Yeah, I think could be something really fun and really good for the game, that you're able to do, like, I don't know, more skills or more things like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. The idea, Dolphin, you had with the ship reversing, I don't think that needs to be in any skill tree or anything. I think they could just double or triple ship reversing speed and nobody would care.
That was just an example, like things.
Yeah, I know, but that is a good standalone idea. You don't need magic or tarot or whatever the fuck. You just double or triple ship reversing speed. People would be happy about it.
It's such a pain to park a ship. It takes like forever to park it. Like if you just slightly increase the reverse speed, I don't think it hurts anybody. That'd be really nice. I do like the ability to like being able to have more speed when going against the wind in certain situations, especially if I'm turning. I'm turning on fate. If I find someone else, if I have a feat that increases my turning radius while I'm fighting, just for a brief amount of time, I think that would be great. Like little interesting situations when you're fighting against someone with like better sails, for example. If you're fighting someone, you only have speed sails, and you're fighting someone who has like handling sails, and their sails are much better. You have the feat to just being able to turn quicker during that specific situation. I think that would create like.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would add variety on the water. I don't hate that. I like how the water is. I don't know. Just such an interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the waters. I like the slow, deliberate pace of combat on the water, where your move right now doesn't really come to fruition until maybe 60, 90, or even 180 seconds later. I think that's a really good mechanic. I think it makes ship PvP something that is fundamentally not based on Twitch, but based on projecting and predicting your enemy's moves. I think that's a great part of the game. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't add other things like a turning trick or something to that effect to it. I don't want to see it become a tit for tat Twitch mechanic kind of thing. I really like how it's very deliberate right now.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we're now 2 hours into the podcast. Do you guys want to give any final statements? Closing statements?
Yes. Restore Pablo.
Restore Pablo?
Restore
Amen.
Pablo.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all I have to say.
I'm going to catch a lot of shit for being the second person in the stream to say that about my clanmate.
I don't know who Pablo is.
So, Pablo is the second person in my tribe, no, the third person in my tribe this season to have his character deleted randomly due to a fast travel.
What?
He had every Power Stone, he had Easy and Hard Kraken, he had Easy and Hard Yeti, he had every other feat in the game. He was level 103. Poof, gone during a fast travel.
And they won't give him his
No.
I don't even think they have the commands to do that. They do that in R, but I don't think they have like the
they say it's early access, and so they're not going to address issues like that. But like, just give him his levels back or something. Like, it wouldn't be hard. Anyway, they need to fix that more broadly. Restore Pablo, but also fix the thing that causes characters to poof. Come on.
Okay.
Anyway,
I agree.
hashtag Restore
Javi, do you
Pablo.
have any pleasant statements?
No. Nothing to say. We discussed everything, I think. The actual point of the game. I think the most important thing I said is the lag. The lag, because you cannot even sometimes compare some things with the lag, because some things doesn't work as they work without lag, and yeah, I think it's one of the most important things in the game.
I
The
agree.
most important thing in the game.
You agree?
See
Yeah, I
fights
don't think
with
anything else
lag.
comes. I don't think anything else comes close to the lag in terms of being an issue that needs addressing. Totally agree.
Yeah. For me, just really want more incentive to fight on water, like world events and stuff like that. That's all I want. I'm tired of like doing land PvP. I want to see more boat PvP. But yeah. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on the podcast. And everyone for watching. And
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks again for hosting it. Thanks for having me along this time. Hope we can do it again sometime. Really enjoyed the conversation.
All right, yeah, thank you. All right, I'll see you guys next time.
Okay.